Hi everyone, this is me, Lisa. I'm here to talk to you about the probate department, okay? That's our new subject about probate law. I absolutely love probate law. It's probably because I've had quite a lot to do with things, with probate anyway. So, let's chat about this. Hold on, why is that not clicking? There you go. So, probate is about what happens when someone dies, what happens to their money, their estate, etc. And it's about the distribution of the person that's died, or what we call the deceased persons, their property. It could be money, shares, property, as I said, furniture, jewellery, it could be anything, okay? It's about who gets what, okay? Now, if you worked in a probate department, it's not just dealing with a deceased person's estate. There will be preparing wills for people, and a will is someone preparing for advance what they want to do with their money once they die. A lot of people like the solicitors to hold their wills, and that's because they don't want their family members to find out what is in the will. And acting as an executor, which is the person that sorts out the will. So the solicitor could act as an executor. However, that costs a lot of money. Okay, so let me tell you a little story about one of my brother's friends. I absolutely detest this man. Anyway, he was a probate solicitor, but not a normal one. He was in this little niche boutique firm in London, and it had lots of lords and ladies. Okay, by the way, if you can hear that sound, it's my dog. Okay, just making lots of noise, but sorry about that. Anyway, he had lots of clients that were lords and ladies, etc. He really hated his job. He wanted to be an actor, but he had this amazing legal secretary. She dealt with all the lords and ladies. She knew exactly what to do. So he paid her £120,000 a year. Unbelievable, isn't it? And that's because she did most of his job, really, and she only referred to him occasionally because he didn't want to be there. He was out for having auditions for, acting and that. He had been in EastEnders once, I think. Anyway, I've gone off the subject, come back to it. Acting as executor. If a solicitor acts as an executor, they will take a percentage of the will. So they could take like 2%. And you might think, 2% is not a lot. On £100, it's £2. On £1,000 of a estate, it's £20. Sorry, my brain's gone a bit. But imagine the estate was 10 million. That's quite a lot of money. And if it was 100 million, that's an awful lot of money. Okay. So solicitors do like to act as executors because it's really easy to do, and they make money from it. Preparing codicils. I'm going to go into codicils later, okay? Preparing trusts. So imagine you've got someone that's really, really well off. If they give all their money to their children, then the children would have to pay a lot of tax on it, okay? But if they put it into a trust for the children to receive it when they're 21 or 25 and it's drip fed to them, then it avoids lots of tax, so that's quite good. So that goes into estate planning for tax as well, because there's a lot of the tax rate for probate law is 40%, so it's quite a lot, but I'll get into that later. Power of attorney as well. So I don't know if you've ever heard of powers or powers of attorney. You can have this over someone else. We had this over my mother-in-law, okay, when she declined into dementia. She was living in her own house. She was going into dementia. Anyway, we got that on her health and her financial, which means we could decide which care home she was going to live in, and we could make any end-of-life decisions. We also had powers of attorney for financial, so her bank accounts were attached to ours, and we could use her money to pay for her care home fees or pay for her hairdressing fees or having her nails done, etc. Okay. Actually, my brother has power of attorney over me in Lanzarote, and that's because I've got a sharing property over Lanzarote, and I think I own a car there, my brother's name, whatever. But he has total control of my affairs in Lanzarote. So powers of attorney are all over the world. They're not just a British thing, okay? So something a probate department would do would be gathering monies of the deceased. So imagine someone's died and they've got a life insurance there and they've got 10,000 in that bank account or 5,000 in that bank account. The job of the executor or executrix is to get the money into one account so it's ready for distribution once it's sorted out legally, okay? And the last line there is dealing with grants of probate and letters of administration. I'll go on to that in a minute, okay? Now, whenever you type a will or you write anything about a will, capital W for the word will, okay? It's always going to be in initial capitals, okay? So a will is you saying what you want to happen to your estate when you die, okay? So, you know, you want your car to go to your mum and you want, you know, the 5,000 in your account to go to your brother, that kind of thing. Add on the next one. Intestate. So you might have heard this, that, someone has died intestate. All that means is they've died and they didn't have a will, okay? So I've got a will, so I can't die intestate. But you might not have a will. And if that's the case and you drop dead, sorry to talk about this in times of pandemic, but if you suddenly drop dead and you don't have a will, you die intestate. So that means your property and possessions will be passed to husband or wife or your biological children. If not, it will go up to your parents or it will go sideways to your brothers and sisters. If you happen to be living with your partner and you've been living with them for 30 years, it doesn't matter, they cannot get anything. Okay? And if you are living with a stepchild, they can't get anything. And if you always promised your friend she could have that, you know, lovely vase of yours that's really valuable, if it's not in a will, she can't have it because you've died intestate, okay? So they can't get anything from you. This is why sometimes there's a bit of a boon to being married, is that it can go to whoever you say. Well, no, a will tell you who it wants to go to, but if you died, if you were married and you died, everything would automatically go to your husband and your children, okay? Right, we need to talk about inheritance tax. The most anybody can leave in their will without paying tax is 325,000, okay? So if I've got 325,000, I can say, right, I want 100 to go to you, 100 to go to you, 100 to go to you, 25,000 to go to you. That's it. There's no tax, not a problem, okay? But imagine if I was really lucky and an uncle I've never heard of decided to leave me £400,000. Amazing, brilliant, okay? However, the most they can leave is 325,000. So I'm going to have to pay tax on £75,000. So 400 minus 325 is £75,000. Now immediately, I would owe HMRC or the tax office £30,000 because it's 40% tax, okay? So before I get that, whatever I'm getting, 300 and something thousand, 370,000, I've got to pay 30,000 to the taxman, and I know it's insane, but I can't pay it out the money I'm getting. I've got to, if I suddenly had an inheritance of 400,000, I would have to get a loan for 30,000, pay the tax office, then I can get 370,000, then I can pay the loan back. It's insane, but it's the way it works at the moment, unless it's changed, but I don't think it has. Okay, there's a process. So I've dealt with a few of these. It's something called a grant of probate. So I dealt with my mother-in-law's death, and I dealt with a grant of probate. So basically what I had to do is I had to fill in some forms. I had to get loads of copies of death certificates, sent it to everywhere she owed money or where she had money, and said that I've got the legal authority to get the money in, and I had to get that all in, fill in another form, and I had to put down who the members of the family were, send it all to the government with the will. The government says, yep, that's okay. They gave me a grant of probate, which means that I can then distribute the money to where it's meant to go, okay? Now, if somebody died intestate and they didn't have a will, I would have to do the same thing, but because there's no will, I would have to then see who is the beneficiary, so who would get the money, and it would normally be the children. And if not the children, it would be the parents, and if not the parents, it would be brothers and sisters. And if there's nothing, it goes to the government, okay? You might have ever seen a program called Heir Hunters, spelled H-E-I-R, Heir Hunters, and that is dealing with people that never had any relatives and they've left a lot of money, okay? Right. Executor or executrix, okay? Trix means female, tor means male, okay? So it's a bit like dominatrix, that's a female, but executrix is female and executor is male. So those girls amongst you, you'll be executrix. Those boys amongst you, you'll be executor. So the executor is the one that sorts out the will and is responsible for administering the estate according to the wishes of the will. They are responsible for everything they do or do not do. So if they don't pay the tax when they're supposed to, they are responsible and they can get sued. It is a very serious role. You shouldn't take it on lightly. So they have to be honest in what they're doing. A codicil. Right, so you've probably seen ads for wills. You can get a will done for £75,000, but £75. But how do you know it's a good will? Because a will can have holes in it, it can be a bit ambiguous. So if you've got a lot of money, you want a really good solicitor to do your will, and it might cost quite a bit of money. It might cost £500 because you've got complicated tax affairs. That's fine. So if you then decide, say you had this complicated will and you left £5,000 to your sister, then you had a falling out with your sister and you think, she's not getting my £5,000. Well, what you can do is you can do a codicil. Instead of having the whole will rewritten, you can do a codicil and say, the £5,000 I was going to leave to my sister, I now want to leave to my best friend Jane. Okay? And that's what you can do. And so a codicil is an addition to the will, and it saves having the whole thing redone. So, years ago, wills were typed on A3 paper and then folded over. And in the days of typewriters, it was a nightmare because you make one mistake and somebody can take it to court and say the will was ambiguous. It's really annoying. There's certain rules about wills. They must never be attached to any other document. There can't be any smudges on the paper. And there are never, ever, ever any full stops in a will. Okay? Now, also, a will is always fully justified. It is always page numbered from the second page onwards. There's never any breaker and attestation clause. And an attestation clause just means that that's a signy bit where you sign your name. So it has to be absolutely with the rest of the will. Otherwise, you could just get another sheet and anybody could sign it. And you could say, oh, yeah, that's Lisa's will. And you could have signed it, It has to be all connected. So an attestation clause has to have a will on the page as well. Draft wills, which means ones that we're checking that it's right. So if I created a will for a client, I would create a draft will, send it to them, and it would all be on single-sided paper. Then the client would send it back. And if he says, yeah, that's perfect, I would engross it, which means I print it on thick paper, double-sided. That makes sense, okay? And I want to talk to you, you're going to have these words come up, okay? And I just want to explain a few of them to you. So beneficiary. You could be a beneficiary of the will, which means you're going to get something from the will. In the will, it might say, I bequeath. It means I bequeath, I'm going to leave you such and such, okay? You're going to hear the word bequest. There was a bequest for you of £10,000, okay? Attestation clause, that's the signy bit I talked about. Codicil is the addition to the will, okay? Estate, it doesn't mean a big country estate. Estate can be your £10 that you got in your bank account when you die, that is the estate. Or it could be 10 million. It's just whatever the deceased person leaves behind. Executor or executrix, someone that sorts out the will, whether male or female. Intestate means you died without making a will. Issue, in this case, issue means a child. So if you died without issue, you died without having children. Hopefully that makes sense. Heir is someone that's going to inherit from the will. Executed in this sense means the will has been signed, okay? It's not somebody's having their head chopped off. No, it means the will has been signed. Legacy means something has been left to you. Predecease means you die before, or the person dies before someone else. Revoke means you take back whatever you said or did. Residue is what's left over. Sorry, I'm rushing because I've got 30 seconds left. And testator and testatrix, they're the people that sign the will. So if I was signing my own will, I will be the testatrix. If my husband was signing his own will, he would be the testator. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Bye.